The disappearance of my sister. My name's Jeremy. I'm 13 years old. We live in a little neighborhood up north. I have a younger sister who is 7 years old. Her name is Mia. She is a beautiful girl with orange hair and green eyes. This is a story I thought I would never share with anyone. One night, when my dad came home from work, he looked pretty happy, with a big infectious smile on his face. That was very odd, since most of the time, he was very tired after coming home. I was sitting in the living room watching TV with my mom. Mia was upstairs in her room. He came into the living room and just stood there with a smile on his face. I realized that he was holding something behind his back. I asked what he was holding, and he quickly showed it to us. Tada! It was a doll? I wasn't expecting that. He smiled even more and told us that his old friend gave it to him at work. He refused to take it at first because he knew how much it meant to his friend. It was his daughter's old doll. She just grew out of it, I guess. Anyway, he told us that it was for Mia and asked us if we think she'll like it. My mom was quite pleasantly surprised and told him that she'll absolutely love it. I didn't know how to respond. I mean, it was just a basic doll with a pink dress and brown hair, but it doesn't take much to make Mia happy, so I said yes. He whispered to us that he'll give it to her, and it'll be a little surprise. He exited the living room and turned to the stairs. He went up, turned left, and knocked on her door. She quickly opened the door and asked Dad what he needed. He had the doll behind his back once again, and he showed it to her. She got extremely excited and started jumping up and down. It was just another boring doll to her collection, but whatever. See what I mean? It really doesn't take that much. After all that, Dad went downstairs again and said he'll go take a shower. It was about 10 p.m. I was very tired at the time and decided to go to bed. I told my parents goodnight and went up the stairs. My room was to the right, while Mia's was on the left side. I came closer to her door and knocked. She, once again, opened the door, quite annoyed that I just disrupted her playtime. I asked her if she liked it. Stupid question. I know, it was obvious. She said that she loved it, and I told her goodnight. While I was standing there, I saw the doll on her table. It was laying on its back, its right side facing me, and its head tilted to the right, towards me. Its eyes opened and just staring at me. Weird. Anyway, I went to my room, opened the door, and went inside. I turned the light on and shut the door behind me. I walked next to my bed and fell on it. I was very tired, and all I could think about was going to bed. So I opened the window, turned the light off, and went to bed. At approximately 2 a.m., I heard some weird noises downstairs that woke me up. I got up and turned the light on. I opened the door slowly and walked out of the room. I saw that Mia's door was opened. I quietly approached it and saw her sleeping with her new doll. What was that sound, though? I went downstairs and turned the lights on in the kitchen, where the sounds were coming from. It was my cat, Jaeger, that silly cat. He had been playing with his toy that we had bought him the week before. I put some food in his bowl and went back to bed. The next morning, I woke up feeling much better, full of energy. I got up and strolled my way downstairs and made myself some cereal. My mom was in the living room, reading a book, while my dad was still sleeping. After I finished my cereal, I went to the living room and asked my mom if Mia was awake. She said that she didn't know. I went back upstairs and knocked on her door. She didn't open it. I slowly peeked inside her room and saw her still sleeping comfortably, her back facing me. I entered and saw that stupid doll again, on the table. It almost looked like it was watching her. Then I noticed something. She wasn't sleeping, she was awake. I asked her if everything was all right, and she told me that she wasn't feeling so well, that she could barely move. She looked weak. I went to tell my mom. She immediately ran upstairs and gave her the thermometer. Her temperature was over the top. The night came. It was around the same time like yesterday. Around 10 p.m., Mia was feeling a bit better. I was about to go bed, but then I heard something weird. Mia was still terribly sick, by the way. As I approached her room, I heard someone talking. It wasn't Mia, nor could it be my parents. They were downstairs. I slowly opened the door and saw it. The doll was sitting down on its own. It was muttering random nonsense while staring at Mia sleeping. As I was looking, the door cracked. The doll immediately stopped muttering and fell down to the ground. I was shocked. I turned the light in her room and ran inside. Mia woke up and slowly turned to me. She asked what was happening. I obviously didn't tell her because she'd be creeped out. So I told her to get up and leave the room now. She listened. I shouted for my parents to come as fast as possible. They did, without a single thought. I tried explaining everything to them, but they didn't listen, nor did they believe me. They said I just wanted attention. They put Mia back to bed and told me to go to sleep immediately. After entering my room, I sat down. I couldn't sleep. I was so creeped out by everything I didn't even know what to do. Eventually, while just sitting there for about 30 minutes, I fell asleep. Suddenly, I have been woken up again by some strange noise. I stood up, my legs shaking. I went to Mia's room and opened the door. The doll was on the table. Mia was sleeping. I thought maybe I was just going insane and went back to bed. In the morning, Mia was the first one to wake up, around 6 a.m. It was a very weird time for her to wake up. I woke up around 8 a.m. and went downstairs. I saw her and asked her if everything was all right. She didn't respond. I asked again. Yet again, she didn't respond. I walked up to her and I froze. Her eyes were a gray color. She felt so lifeless, like it wasn't her anymore. I ran to my parents' room and woke them up. I said it was an emergency. They followed me, but when we came, she was gone. The front door was open. We looked for her everywhere. We couldn't find her. The police had to get involved, and yet, no progress. She just vanished in a couple of seconds. A week has passed, and all I do is cry all day long. I miss her so much. The grief I feel is immense. I go to her room every day to remember the memories we had together. I miss her so much. I sat down on her bed and looked around the room. I saw the doll. I picked it up and only now realized the doll's eyes were green, just like my sister's. But wait, weren't they gray before? Suddenly it started whispering something. I put my ear to it and I froze in shock. It was Mia's voice. The new girl borrowed my notes and now they smell like a rotting corpse. My name is Jane. I'm in a friend group of 4 girls, including me. Recently, I made friends with this girl, Sarah, and introduced her to my other friends. I met her through my biology class. Mr. Williams sat her next to me since she switched schools to our school mid-semester. I lent her my notes from the previous semester to catch her up on exam prep. Most of my friends were fine with her, but one of my friends, Maria, wasn't. I never bothered to ask why since I usually talk to Sarah outside of the 4-girl friend group anyways. I did try not to bring her around Maria as much, because I could always sense that Maria was uncomfortable around her. This worked for the most part, until Sarah began joining us for lunch almost every day. I didn't specifically tell her to sit with us, she just started sitting at our table. Because of this, she started to get closer to another girl from my friend group, Jen, thus making Sarah talk more whenever she sat at our table. Maria really hated this and stayed silent the entire time. I started feeling bad and got curious, so I asked her about it during our only shared period, math. She told me there was no specific reason. It was just that Sarah gave her bad vibes. I was a little confused, but brushed it off for a while. I suppose it's not entirely abnormal to get bad vibes from a new person in your friend group. Anyways, last Tuesday, during biology, which was the last period, Sarah had returned all my notes and reviewers I had created back to me. I was shocked at how fast she picked up a semester's worth of lessons, but still thanked her and accepted it. When I got home, I started studying until I noticed an odd smell coming from my books. It smelled something like left-out fish, kind of like the leftover sushi a Japanese restaurant would throw into the trash. I asked her about it the next day, and she started getting emotional. She said that her family had been evicted the previous month, and they had been moving from place to place for shelter. On the days she studied my notes, her family was staying at a musty old motel and had been struggling a lot financially. I felt a surge of guilt flow through my veins for asking her about it. She walked away before I could apologize. During lunch, I talked to Jen about it, since she was also getting close to Sarah. She looked confused. Then, she explained that Sarah had just gifted her a Kate Spade bag a few days ago, as an early birthday gift. How could her family be struggling if she could afford to gift Jen a Kate Spade bag? I was shocked. Why would she lie about that? Also, what was the cause of the smell of my books if her explanation wasn't true? I couldn't take notes during class because the smell kept distracting me. I just borrowed notes from Anna, the last girl from my friend group. I was too awkward and shy to bring the information to Sarah. I tried to forget about it, but I couldn't. The smell was so distinct I couldn't forget it. That spoiled fish stench with an almost burnt smell. It was hard to explain. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided just to take a picture of my notes, then copy them onto a new notebook, so I could throw the stinky books out after that. I wanted to tell Jen about it the next day, but she started ignoring me. She didn't even sit at the same table as me. Maria also sat at a different table from fear of Sarah sitting with us. Yeah, fear. I just ate lunch with Anna that day. She hadn't talked to Sarah much, other than small talk whenever she joined our table for lunch. Anna suggested that I text her when I get home. I did text her when I got home, but she didn't reply. She left me on read. Maria pulled me aside the next day. She finally explained why she had been avoiding Sarah. She had recognized Sarah from the summer camp she attended the previous year. She never really talked to Sarah there. She recognized Sarah because she had attempted to hit a girl on the head with a giant wood plank and was kicked out. She was sent to jail for about 4 months, That's why she had joined late this semester. Chills were sent down my spine. It all began to make sense, for a while at least. The next day, Maria was absent from class. I didn't know why. She wasn't replying to my texts or answering my calls either. I had lunch alone with Anna again, and she told me that Jen had given her a note that she said to give to me. I took it and read it after finishing lunch. The note read, "I'm being threatened." Another round of chills took over my body. Who was threatening her? Sarah? Like I had mentioned before, exams were coming up. Our final project before that was a model of a wind turbine. We were already 2 days behind schedule, so we agreed to meet up at her house, to my dismay. Wait, her house? I thought, right before I left. I remembered how she got emotional a few days ago, speaking about how she was just evicted the month before, and how she had been moving from motel to motel for shelter. I hesitated going to her house, but I was already doing bad in chemistry, and I couldn't afford to waste any more time for this project. I brought a small bottle of pepper spray with me, just to be safe. I arrived at her house at around 6 p.m., not to offend anyone, but it did not look like the house of anyone who would be suffering financially. It wasn't a mansion or anything, but it had gray painted concrete walls, polished floors of wooden planks. Her parents weren't home. She explained that they had gone on a 2-month business trip. "It's fine, I'm independent, I can take care of myself," she explained. It was pretty comfortable too. It made me even more uneasy. At some point during the project making, I told her I needed to use the bathroom. She told me to use the guest one downstairs. On my way there, my nose started tingling, as if alerted or startled by something. It had caught the whiff of a very familiar scent, that burnt, rotten fish smell. I looked behind me and realized it was coming from a small hallway. I entered the hallway slowly until I reached the door. The smell got stronger until it was almost unbearable. I still had that small bottle of pepper spray in my pocket. I was smarter than to leave it in my bag. I opened the door, my right thumb hooked onto my back pocket where the pepper spray was. There was a small staircase leading down into the basement of the house. It was dark. I couldn't see anything apart from the outline of a chair and a shelf. I felt the light switch right beside the bottom of the staircase. I turned the lights on. In the center of the room was Maria. She was unconscious, with a few scratches on her face, arms, and knees. Near the sides and corners of the room were about 4 dead and bloody birds, the corpse of a medium-sized deer. I gasped, stopping myself from screaming. I had been gone for about 3 minutes by then, and if Sarah had thought I was using the restroom, she would probably expect me to be back up soon. The stench was killing me, and I almost passed out. Maria's hands were tied to the back of the chair, and her face was covered with duct tape. I covered my nose and tried to untie her. Suddenly, it all went black. Not because I fainted, but because Sarah had found me in the basement and shut the lights. I had forgotten to close the door. I took out my pepper spray. "This is fun, not for you though," I heard a voice cackle. The innocent demeanor and voice turned into a dark and murderous aura. A tiny light flashed behind me, leaving a shadow on the wall. I looked behind me, and it was Sarah. "Boo!" she screamed, as I jumped up in horror at the sight of her lit-up face from the flashlight under her chin. I fell backwards, bumping into the chair Maria was half tied to. She woke up from the fall. I took out my pepper spray and sprayed Sarah in the face. She screamed in pain, blinded, as she bumped into the shelf, making it topple over onto her, while she landed on the carcass of the dead deer. I finished untying Maria and removed the tape on her face, and we hurried out of the house. I helped her as she limped out of the house, as Sarah's screams grew quieter and quieter the further we got from her house. We rode home on my tiny pink moped scooter. I called the police once we got home as my mother treated Maria's wounds. Once the officers arrived at Sarah's house, she was nowhere to be found. What would have happened to Maria if I hadn't chosen to go to her house that day? Though this traumatic experience will follow me for a while, I'm glad I did it for Maria. The next day during lunchtime, the 4 of us finally gathered again, including Jen. She told us that Sarah threatened to kidnap her if she didn't get away from me, as Maria and I shared the terrifying experience at her house. Now, nothing could break the bond between my friends and I, not even some rando psycho killer. Every now and then, I pass by the park to cool my ever-growing thoughts. I always pass by the same flyer near the lamppost beside the dumpsters. A missing persons report for Sarah Smith. Not wanted, missing. Why she did all of this, I don't know. I seem to have stopped her plans before she even finished it halfway, thankfully. I get curious sometimes, but I know it's better that I didn't find out. Well, that was pretty much it. I hope you liked the story till then. Bye-bye.